So I want to talk a bit more about the benefits of green building. And one of the things, and I'm sure that you will run into this very soon as well, is the question, is new always efficient? And I learned from DNB that they moved into half the floor space and then even half, or brought their energy consumption down by half of that. But there have also been examples of buildings in the US where, because the floor area was used more intensively, more people on the same square meters, that energy consumption actually goes up. And I think you got to be prepared for that. And when you think about energy benchmarking, that we also got to think about smarter ways to benchmark the performance of buildings. Not divide by square meters, but divide by the number of people in the building. Because otherwise, you really get to the wrong metrics. And Bank of America building, it's One Bryant Park, New York, very nice building. Has a lot of trading firms, a lot of servers in that building. Yes, it's going to use more energy. So you got to standardize for the right metrics, because what we found in studies is that energy consumption in these buildings has actually been going up. Now, I do think there's one thing to keep in mind, and that's the tenant. So I think Norway is on the track, even though there's no legislation to develop zero net buildings, and Powerhouse did a nice presentation, which was a Norwegian, but it was a pretty nice movie that they made, smiling people, etc. So zero net building, fantastic. But the building is just the beginning, right? Because at the end, you also have the tenant. And the tenant is the one that's responsible for plug load. Now, what we've seen since the 70s is printers, is computers, is appliances. Of course, we've always had lifts, etc. But now we also have appliances. And more than one appliance per person. So the part of building energy consumption due to appliances has been increasing quite rapidly. We've also increased our HVAC, mostly in Norway, heating and ventilation, not so much cooling, and of course there's lighting. Now, I'm convinced that we can bring this part back, the heating and ventilation part, but also the lighting part, to fairly low amounts that you can offset by renewables, by solar, for example. I'm not sure about the solar part in Norway, but you can offset this with renewables. But the plug load part, so what your tenants use, is much harder to control. And I really think that, once we've started to develop buildings that are zero net or towards zero net, and we're getting fairly close, this really deserves a lot of attention. And I do think, from the conversations I've had with some of you, that tenant engagement and giving tenants feedback on their energy consumption, even though they do not always want that, is a very important part. And working with the tenants to see how that can be reduced.